Right, welcome back. More news at the Sour. Cape Town Mayor Geordin Hill-Lewis has authorised a reward of 250,000 rand that can lead to a breakthrough in the murder of a law enforcement officer in Nyanga. The officer was shot in the head and died en route to hospital last night. Police are probing whether the incident is linked to the ongoing taxi strike within the province. The city of Cape Town says it's the maximum reward possible. Hill-Lewis earlier expressed his condolences to the family of the 34-year-old officer and said they'll work closely with the police to bring the perpetrators to book. Law enforcement authorities continue to monitor the situation in various parts of the Western Cape affected by the SANTACO strike. But perhaps to get a sense of what the situation looks like now, we're joined on the line by MMC for Safety and Security, JP Smith. A very good afternoon to JP. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon.
Perhaps you could just give us an update on the situation as we speak in the Western Cape regarding the taxi strike.
Indeed, I've just been in contact with the people presiding over the Joint Operations Centre, and in most areas things have stabilized, including in Khayelitsha and Nyanga, which were the two hotspots. We have had sporadic stone throwing on the N7, which has led to the closure of the road, hit and run stone throwing, and very often by quite young children, and also some stone throwing in Hout Bay, where a vehicle was damaged. For me, the day or the last 24 hours is marred by the incredibly tragic incident of the death of Officer Kwinana, one of our LEAP officers who was en route home. He and other staff were being dropped at home after their shift when somebody discharged 13 rounds at the vehicle, and he was struck. The other two officers escaped injury, but he died on his way to hospital. And it's an incredibly tragic incident. Our own investigative resources are working with the police to bring this to try and find the perpetrators and bring them to order, but an incredibly tragic turn of events. And I'm afraid just underscores the sort of thuggery and criminality we've seen over the last 2 days. As the mayor has also said, it is your prerogative to withhold services, but it is never your prerogative to engage in violence and intimidation to achieve your outcomes.
JP, thank you for that update. Perhaps as we look at what is transpiring in terms of negotiations and discussions in the middle of all of this, commuters, businesses and motorists affected by this standoff. Can you give us an update in terms of the engagements between SANTACO and the city? Is an amicable solution to the differences before the 9th of August? Where do we stand on that front?
I can. There was a discussion yesterday that lasted much of the afternoon and evening between the city, provincial government, national government, and the taxi industry. I put a proposal before them in the morning that proposing that we clarify the issue around enforcement. There are essentially two issues that are being used as the stated reasons for the violence and strike. I say stated because I don't believe those are really the reasons. The one is the issue around permits, and province and city have made quite a lot of additional permits available on several of the routes in preceding months, and many of those have not been taken up yet. And then there is the issue of the enforcement, which we do in terms of the National Land Transportation Act, not any city bylaw, and that the issue is when we fine, because we issue a lot of fines as well, and when we impound. And I offered to help delineate these into two categories so that it is clear when we impound and when we fine, to help give clarity and stability to that situation. We do not impound in any case for the offences they're concerned about, the petty stuff, but I was happy for us to commit to that in writing. The condition was that the violence would abate immediately. That was agreed to yesterday afternoon, and then sadly last night we had the fatal attack on Officer Kwinana and on other people and other vehicles. So I'm afraid the taxi has not held up their end of the bargain, and there appear to be some people among that fraternity who are determined to prevent amicable solution being reached.
So, JP, at this point in conclusion, are there any concerns about rising tensions, escalation in violence or disruptions and incidences at this point, given what you've just echoed? in terms of them not upholding the end of the bargain?
At the moment, things are stabilized in most communities. Yesterday also we had about 7 hours of peace in the afternoon. So the incidents have largely happened in the mornings. And then, of course, the Officer Kwinana, the attack on him and his colleagues last night late. So we're hoping that we will be able to keep the peace. We're escorting buses in many communities, and other communities the buses are running uninterrupted. Buses are at about 95% functionality. And, of course, the truth is that in many communities the buses would fairly compensate for the absence of the taxis, but for the intimidation and attacks. So the taxis are preventing other operators from offering a viable alternative solution to the commuters. And I think that's deeply selfish and makes a lie of the purported interest in the safety and the best interest of the commuters. That's not, I'm afraid, what's happening here. So we are trying to make sure everybody can get to where they need to be safely.
Have you been able to quantify the losses since the strike began?
Golden Arrow lost 7 vehicles, so you're looking at about 8.5 million, 9 million rand there. Then the city has had numerous operational vehicles damaged, which, I mean, we can replace. My greatest anxiety is for the private vehicles. I saw one particular bakkie that had broken down next to Nomzamo, which had been left stationary, presumably because the occupants were too scared to remain in it. And before any of our resources could stand down at it, they set it was set alight. I look at those and I remember the gentleman whose delivery truck was destroyed during such a riot a few years ago, who told me from East River that truck was his entire livelihood and his family's entire livelihood, and he was unable to replace it. So I fear that it is hard to quantify the losses suffered by private individuals. And for me, the greatest loss is human life here. Officer Kwinana and his family will never have him return to them.
All right, JP, let's continue to monitor developments, perhaps, as the taxi strike in the Western Cape continues. JP Smith is the MMC for Safety and Security, giving us an update on what has transpired to date. We understand that Geordin Hill-Lewis, the mayor of the city of Cape Town, has offered a 250,000 rand reward leading to any breakthrough and information in the murder of a law enforcement officer in Nyanga. The officer was shot in his head. So we'll continue to monitor developments and see what unfolds as a resolution is found in relation to the dispute at hand. Again, thank you to JP for his time here on the SABC.